However, the presence of two characters from outside the story acting as a Greek chorus is distracting for me. They can actually be kind of charming in stories with happy endings like The Musicians of Bremen, which is one of my all-time personal favorite fairy tales. If this show had been on when I was a kid, I would have definitely watched it and enjoyed it, except for this episode, which would have depressed me. It's like they're trying to soften the blow for children, but outside of changing the ending, there is nothing you can do to truly tone it down. You can only make it worse.
Wow, Yo-Yo, did you see that? It's just like the sea witch said. Now she's a spirit living forever. It's just so wonderful.
Are you crazy? Is that your problem?
Still, in a strange way, I am almost glad that the original story doesn't end like it does in the World Fairy Tale series, because that means every adaptation with a happy ending is unique. They all have to do something to change the story, and it makes watching different versions of The Little Mermaid more exciting than those of other fairy tales, which can be more paint by the numbers. It might not be my favorite fairy tale, but to me it's the most interesting one in all the ways it can be adapted, and I'd even go as far as to say that The Little Mermaid may be my favorite fairy tale protagonist because I'm always rooting for her, even when I know from the start that she's doomed. It's a big ocean. There's plenty of room for all versions, regardless of whether I like them or not. If your favorite is the Burbank movie or even all the Disney Little Mermaid adaptations, more power to you. Every version, no matter what, brings something new to the table. The Golden Films Little Mermaid, my least favorite adaptation not made by Disney, has a surprisingly bittersweet ending where the mermaid wins the prince but doesn't regain her voice, which is a pretty bold move for a true Disney knockoff. The live show has the prince regain consciousness when the mermaid saves him, and they both fall in love with each other. I know that part of the charm of the story is that the prince doesn't realize that his mute friend saved his life, but better this than another one where she dies at the end and he never realizes. Or worse, he realizes only after she dies. This is proof that every version of the tale has at least one interesting idea to offer, even when the Sea Witch sounds like a villain from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
I am the strongest in this ocean. Ruler of the depths and keeper of all potions.
I can't decide whether this is one of the worst versions of The Little Mermaid I have ever seen, or one of the best. Visually it's amazing, but the pre-recorded dialogue is unintentionally hilarious. Maybe it would help if it was dubbed over with lines from another version of the story.
We haven't discussed the subject of payment. You can't get something for nothing, you know.
But I don't have
I'm not asking much. Just a token, really, a trifle. You'll never even miss it. What I want from you is your voice.
My voice?
You've got it, sweet cakes. No more talking, singing, zip.
Definitely better. Although I think that I'd rather just watch the Mermaid live show performed at the Cerulean City Gym. I would honestly love to do a ranking of all the Little Mermaid adaptations someday. But the problem is that I would have to do two different sets because I can't objectively rank the ones with the original ending. Many of them seem to be incredibly well done, even more so than some of the versions I like, but I just can't get over how they end, so I would have to rank the sad versions and the happy versions separately. However, I could objectively rank every version of a character like the Little Mermaid, or the Prince, or the Sea Witch. You might think that all the top spots would alternate between the Saban and Disney versions, but you'd be surprised. Mahou No Mako-Chan not only offers the best version of the grandmother, and yes, I am counting her as a grandmother instead of a sea witch because she is ultimately more the former than the latter. Her son is the best version of the Sea King. I forgot to mention the Anderson version of the character back when I discussed Nestor and Triton because he is hands down the weakest character in the original story. He shows up at the beginning, then appears once or twice more, but that is it. The grandmother is more important than he is. I don't even think that he has any lines. Disney really made him more prominent in the public eye, but as with other tropes we associate with The Little Mermaid, they were not the first to do so. The Toei movie had a pretty good take on the character, but 5 years earlier the studio did even better with the Dragon King. Like Nestor, he has a great design that stands out amongst other sea kings. He may have a beard, but it's shorter than the kind he is usually depicted with. The reason he is number one is that he gets the best character development. In the final episode, his mother calls him out on his prejudice towards humans when he says that he is going to save his daughter but not her boyfriend. She points out that Mako is human now, so he would be a hypocrite to save only her. This causes him to relent, and with her help, they save both of them. Also, he can transform into a dragon. I mean, just look at how cool this thing is. As you will see in the next review, I have a soft spot for 60s cartoons, but pretty much none of the animated series we made during the 70s compared to the best ones Japan was doing. So yeah, I would love to do rankings for all the characters, but I just can't properly evaluate the faithful adaptations because they always feel like senseless suffering to me.
We hope you've enjoyed No Moral Theater, ladies and gentlemen.
If you think that I am completely closed-minded about versions with sad endings, allow me to offer two pieces of evidence to the contrary. One is the 1976 film Russalachika, a Russian live-action Little Mermaid movie, and personally I like it better than the animated short of the same name. It's very well done, and although less pleasant than the other adaptations I like, there's something about the way it wears its unpleasantness on its sleeve that makes it more acceptable to me. I love how the prince is an obvious jerk in this one instead of just being subtext. They also play up the princess's villainy by having her manipulate the prince and another suitor into competing against each other. The sea witch is more of a land witch this time, and takes the Little Mermaid's green hair as payment instead of her voice. I don't want to spoil any more because I highly recommend seeing it for yourself, but let me say that while it has a sad ending, I don't find it depressing because the Little Mermaid lives for once. In fact, it was because I watched the ending as well as a couple other clips that I wanted to see the whole thing from start to finish. The only bad thing I can say about the entire movie is that there is some nudity when the Little Mermaid first becomes human, which is canon to the original text and happens in a number of adaptations, but unlike those other versions, she is unfortunately not tastefully censored. Thankfully, it's easy enough to cut that scene out for my personal viewing, leaving me with what is easily my favorite live-action version of the story. Well, except for the episodes of Once Upon a Time Ariel guest starred in. But then it is pretty hard to top a Little Mermaid who isn't afraid to smack Captain Hook around or stab the evil queen from Snow White with a fork.
Are you okay? Good.
The best version where the Little Mermaid dies can be seen in episode 25 of the anime Juni Senshi Bakuretsu Ito Ranger. This is a series about a group consisting of the 12 animals in the Chinese zodiac who are selected to protect all the novel worlds, each of which represents a classic story, from an evil sorceress who sends monsters into them that warp the stories which will eventually destroy each world. Basically, it's Kingdom Hearts meets Samurai Pizza Cats. Every episode, several of the Ito Rangers are sent into the stories to fix things, encountering alternate versions of classic characters like a Peter Pan who can't fly because he's scared of heights, or a Pinocchio who is made of gold instead of wood and as such kept telling lies to get more gold so he could become rich. The only full episode I have seen so far is The Little Mermaid on Broadway, but if the rest of the series is of this quality, then this may very well be one of my favorite anime series ever. The Ito Rangers and all the lucky Japanese children who got to watch this episode learned that sometimes the right thing isn't easy, Because while our heroes are sworn to restore each story to its original state no matter what, for once they are conflicted, because if they do, that means the Little Mermaid will turn into sea foam. This episode works so much better than Simsala Grimm or Anderson Monogatari, because with those it felt like they were trying to downplay the tragedy by being all, "Oh, it's so sad, but look at the cute characters!" Ito Ranger does not sugarcoat anything. When the story is recapped before the mission, everybody is crying at the end. Souffle the sheep brought a book of the original story with her to the novel world, and the Little Mermaid reads it while she's asleep, which restores her memories of how everything should be. But instead of trying to keep things as they are, she helps them flush out the monster who was possessing the princess, which I think is a very nice nod to the potential villainy of the character dating all the way back to the original text. The Little Mermaid says that she accepts her fate because her story tells people something valuable and moves them. Even if it's a tragedy, people will always remember it because that's the power of a good story, and after she turns into sea foam, she will still live on in the hearts of everybody who has read the story. It's shockingly profound for a show where the main cast looks like rejected Sonic the Hedgehog characters, and is easily my favorite Little Mermaid adaptation that clocks in at under 30 minutes.
また会おうね、人魚姫さん。約束だよ、スフレ。
これでよかったんだよな。
はい。
While that did not change my mind about the Anderson version, it was enough to make me more accepting of it. I said that I was a hater of the original story back at the beginning, but now that I think about it, I believe it would be more accurate to merely say that I am not a fan. It's true that I hated it when I first read it, not helped by how shortly afterwards I had a nightmare where my mermaid OC Meili was captured by a villain who used his powers to send her into the story, casting her as the lead and forcing her to relive it over and over again until her sea cat Yamcha rescued her. Now though, I view the dual nature of The Little Mermaid as very much a yin and yang thing. The versions I like could never have been made without the original, and even though the ending is depressing, the story itself should not be erased. Saying that the original fairy tale should be locked away in a vault where nobody can read it is just as bad as Anderson purists saying that the Disney movie should be burned for desecrating the source material. Versions with happy endings should not exist as replacements, but alternatives. One of my favorite episodes of the anime Kaleido Star, about a girl named Sora who joins a Cirque du Soleil theater group, shows her first time in a lead role playing the Little Mermaid in an adaptation with the original ending, and she struggles with how to do it, ranging from mimicking the previous Kaleido stage actress who played the title character and trying to inject comedy into it. Eventually, she comes up with a brilliant idea to change the ending so that the mermaid lives, and that really pleases the audience. While I am sure this is not the intended takeaway from that episode, the message I got from watching it is that it is okay to change the Little Mermaid if you are doing it for artistic purposes. The fairy tale is whatever you want it to be. I prefer endings where the mermaid ends up married to the prince, but as long as she lives, that is usually good enough for me. Some might argue that a happy ending ruins the story, but for me, I think that it merely changes the message. The moral of the original story is that your kindness will be rewarded in the next life, if not this one, and it also serves as a cautionary tale about how you shouldn't sacrifice everything for those who don't even know you exist. However, my preferred interpretations of The Little Mermaid are about couples overcoming a great gap in their relationship to be together, and nowhere is that better exemplified than in Saban's Little Mermaid. For over a year, Marina and Justin have kept their love for each other alive because despite only being able to spend about a couple hours together each day, they treasure every second they have with each other. If they are still together despite that handicap, then imagine how well they'll do when Marina finally becomes human.